Hi, my name is Michael. My Chinese name is Yu Qiu. I am very glad to share my action plan for anti-oppressive education in Chinese secondary classrooms. First, let's just dive into my first part A, context analysis. Oppressive dynamics in Chinese secondary school must be understood with a broader social system shaped by socialization, sexism, classism, and heteronormativity. Schools do not operate as neutral sites. Instead, they reflect and reproduce dominant ideology through daily routines, teacher expectation, curriculum choices, and institutional policies. Using social justice education concepts, the following analysis explore how gender oppression and social economic oppression manifest in Chinese secondary schooling. So I will be talking about gender oppression and socio-economic oppression. The definition of sexism is the systematic privileging of masculinity and disadvantage of femininity. Classism, the systematic privileging of middle upper class values while disadvantaging working class and low income groups. Heteronormativity, the assumption that heterosexuality is the only normal and natural expression of sexuality. How do gender oppression manifest in schools? Gender oppression operates through subtle, normalized, institutionalized form that shapes students' academic and personal lives. There are 7 categories of gender oppression. Look at this one, gendered expectation and stereotyping. In China, teachers and even students believe boys are suitable for STEAM, girls are more suitable for arts. According to a survey conducted by Zhang in 2023, he found out that mathematics stereotypes are significant positively correlated with boys' interest in learning math. In other words, the stronger these stereotypes are, the more interested boys tend to be in math. In contrast, girls' interest in learning mathematics is negatively correlated with interest-related mathematics stereotypes, suggesting the stronger stereotype are associated with lower levels of interest among girls. Unequal teacher attention, boys often receive more instructional time and substantive feedback, especially in science and math. Curriculum and textbook bias. History and literature overwhelming center male achievement, rendering women invisible. So there's a survey, research conducted by Fan in 2024. It shows across 5 major textbooks, English textbooks in China, only 12.91% the main figures were women. 87.9% are men. So women are representative in the curriculum. So that's the hidden sexism in Chinese curriculum. Sexist school policies. In China, girls in China, straight dress codes for girls, for example, no short skirts, no dye hair, implicitly frame girl as responsible for not distracting boys. Boys are forbidden from having long hair, showing emotion such as crying in public is frequently viewed as shameful or humiliating. So this reinforces norms of violence, emotional repression, and devaluation of women. Victim bullying and silent sexual harassment is rarely discussed, and the reporting systems are inadequate, creating a culture of silence. A research conducted by Wen, he compares the difference between China and the United States about the policy for preventing and addressing complex sexuality, sexual harassment. In the UK, they have document provide detailed principle and procedures for school handling sexual harassment complaints. For instance, complaint can be submitted in a written or electronic form. But however, in China, Chinese law lack detailed procedure guidance, leaving many provisions at the level of recommendation. Most primary and secondary schools have no mature system to handle such issues. Sex education is lacking, and schools generally resolve incidents privately rather than through legal channels. Homophobia and heteronormativity. LGBT plus identities are rendered invisible, and students who do not conform to gender norms facing bullying. Uh, just as Sands quote, many LGBT teachers continue to be closed due to the pervasive homophobia, heteronormativity, and harassment because they are afraid of getting in trouble, fear of self-revelation and exposure. And another oppression uh, prevalent in China is classism. And I'm going to talk about how classism shape education futures. Classism is very intensified by the rapid economic stratification in China and the Hutou system. Hutou means the household registrations and high stakes exam culture, turning school into sites where class advantage is reproduced. There are also six manifestations of those oppression. The first one, unequal access to resources, disparity in tutoring, technology, and even quiet study rooms are creating systemic inequality. According to a research conducted by Li and Xu in 2025, annual per student spending on extracurricular tutoring for rural family, the amount is around 4,000, and for urban families over 10, 11,000. So almost like 2 to 3 times of spending of a rural family. So you can see the unbalanced education invest in the future generation. Classroom tracking key classes 重点班 are often dominated by students from family can afford extra preparation, creating internal school hierarchies. Peer discrimination, students are judged on clothing brand. For example, oh, you don't have Nike. I used to work in a international high school. They are comparing the brand of their shoes. Uh, for example, there's a student like showing his new shoes from Balenciaga, and girls are comparing their handbags, like they are bragging about their handbags um, are from Louis Vuitton and Celine. Migrant students face systemic barrier due to hotel restrictions, and rural schools are often under-resourced. Unequal parental involvement. Parents with high socioeconomic status can leverage connection and resources to support their children's education. Psychological pressure, financial stress, and a perceived lack of onward mobility damaged the confidence of low-income students. For example, a middle-class boy or girl growing up in a social world where the relationship between effort and reward is taken for granted, compared to a lower class child growing up in an environment where success is uncommon, so they kind of lose faith to move to a different hierarchy. And students in regular classes uh, often come from poor family, and they tend to internalize a sense of inferiority, reinforced class hierarchy within the school itself. Part B, theoretical framework. So I chose two frameworks. One is intersectionality, another one is anti-oppressive agitation. For intersectionality, it examines how intersecting power relations like gender, class, sexuality shape one another to create a unique compound experience of oppression. It helps us to see the whole picture, not just isolated issues. For example, look at this chart. A girl could be female, right? According to her gender norms. And if she's from rural low-income family, so the whole situation were compound by the intersectionality of her socioeconomic status and sexual identity. The second framework I use is anti-oppressive education by Kumashiro. Uh, AOE is an approach that seeks to identify, disrupt, and transform the way schools themselves reproduce inequality through curriculum, teaching method, policy. It challenges the idea that schools are a passive environment. And AOE also explain why these patterns persist. For example, it talks about dominant ideologies through practices such as curriculum pedagogy policies, reproduction of inequality. Now I'm going to talk about my action plan. So I have 5 goals for my action plan. My action plan is 2 year, uh, and there are 5 internet goals to build a more equitable educational environment. The first goal is to reduce gendered expectation and stereotyping in classroom interactions. The second is develop a gender-inclusive curriculum and school environment. The third goal is to promote safety, visibility, and inclusion for LGBTQ plus students and teachers. Reduce socioeconomic barriers to learning and access. Eliminate structural classism and advance educational equity. So there are some action areas. The first one is transforming classroom culture and curriculum. National Gender Inclusive Teacher Training Initiative. Develop a national training curriculum with leader gender scholar, for example, Li Yinghe and Dai Jinghua. They are the pioneer of the subject of gender and equity in China. So I think they would be a good fit to lead the training curriculum. And we can use a trainer to train the trainer mode where master teachers are trained centrally in Beijing and then they go back to their home schools to teach other teachers. So basically, uh, we need to build a national network of educators equipped to challenge bias and foster inclusive classrooms. Another one is textbook review and revision initiative. Establish a committee to audit textbooks for gender bias and patriarchal narratives. So the success indicator is achieve 30 increase in the representation of women and gender diverse feeder in revised material within 2 years. Action area 2, building a foundation of safety and belonging. Strategy 1, we should create a sexual harassment prevention center in every school and implement monthly educational assemblies on consent and reporting. And this will help move from a culture of silence to one of safety and support. Strategy to LGBTQ plus safety and visibility program, not invisibility, but visibility program. Implement a safe zone program designating classroom and offices as allied spaces. Launching voluntary visibility initiatives such as displaying poster of LGBTQ and historical figures. Of course, there are some challenges might be faced, but we have solutions. One solution is try to frame inclusion initiatives primarily in terms of anti-bullying and student mental health to align with the existing educational priority and navigate political sensitivities. Area 3, dismantling economic and structural barrier. Educational equipment guarantee program. We can conduct any annual need assessments and provide laptops, tablets, and Wi-Fi subsidies for low-income families. Actively partner with corporations like Alibaba, Tencent, and Lenovo for device donation programs. And the goal is 100% students have access to required academic technology within 2 years. Another goal is to another strategy is or goal is to abolish key classes to end in-class segregation. For example, we can randomize class assignment and rotate teacher distribution to ensure equitable access to quality education and conduct annual equity audits to monitor resource distribution. And this will help decrease the achievement gap between formally tracked students group by 25%. So those steps will be faced. The first phase 1 is national planning and capacity building. First, establish national expert teams of scholars, and then develop training curriculum and material. Select regional master teachers for central training. And then we move to phase 2, local training and pilot implementation. Master teachers conduct local train the trainer workshops, and teacher begin integrating gender inclusive lessons and pilot policy changes like abolishing sexist dress codes. And then we'll move to the phase 3, which is after 12 months. Full implementation and equity expansion establish sexual violence prevention and supporting centers in city and in schools, and launch LGBTQ plus safe zone programs, roll out socioeconomic support programs, and fully abolish key classes to attribute uh, uh, and more equitable education. And also we show you a detailed implementation of the timeline. The success of this plan hinges on clear goals, responsibility, and timelines. A comprehensive implementation plan has been developed to guide stakeholders for each phase of the project. As you can see, the detailed implementation timeline. So there are 3 phases of the implementation, as I just mentioned, and there are different key activity for example, phase 1, establish national expert team, draft national training programs, and invite 2 master teachers per district. And there are lead stakeholders, for example, Ministry of Education, gender scholars, and these are the timelines. So hopefully, like through my ideal action plan, we can contribute a better or more equitable education in China. Part D, reflection and positionality. This analysis is shaped by my own social location, which provides a specific lens on these issues. For example, I come from a working class background. My dad is a construction worker. My mom works at a restaurant as a waitress for over 12 years. So, uh, I come from a working class family, and through my whole primary and secondary education, I was surrounded by classmates from middle class background. And later, I was fortunate to attend a good university and eventually study abroad, which exposed me further to middle class students. So through my conversation with peers, I realized many of them assume a shared upbringing. For example, Michael, you must learn violin or piano when you are young. No, I didn't have the choice. I just play like mud in countryside. That was my childhood. So I'm very glad I can have like 2 lenses uh, to look at the uh, distribution of educational resources in China. And I realized uh, because of classism, I didn't realize my full potential at a very young age because I didn't have the opportunity or my family don't give me the enough resources to achieve my full potential. So overall, my working class background has shaped my positionality by allowing me to see and compare the lived reality of both working classes and middle class students, as well as the systemic barrier that differentiate educational opportunities. In terms of gender issue, I self-identify as a heterosexual male. Through my childhood and secondary schooling, I learned the message such as boys shouldn't cry, otherwise that's very humiliating. And all the emotional expression was framed humiliating or embarrassing for boys. So those norms shape my understanding about masculinity and contribute to my own experience of gender oppression in school. As I discussed in part one, I internalized assumptions such as boys are naturally better at STEAM subjects, which is not true. I'm not good at math. I sucked at math, but after reflection, I recognize gender oppression manifests in many forms during my schooling, including rigid expectation for boys and girls, unequal teacher attention, curriculum and textbook bias. So my position allows me to see both the advantages of class marginalization and unearned advantage of heteronormative privilege reinforce the necessity of an intersectional approach. And I have to admit, there are some limitation in my plan. For example, the political and cultural constraint. In China, schools may avoid implementing those measures to comply with local regulation, avoid controversy. And also, like one limitation is over reliance on top-down implementation. So my plan is like everybody go to like Beijing to receive education and then go back to the city. That's even when I try to challenge my old way of thinking, I'm still find myself relying on the centralized mindset. And another limitation is insufficient attention to parent and community pushback. Parents may object to lessons on gender stereotypes uh, related to LGBT topics or change dress code, especially in conservative regions. And my commitment to ongoing learning. First one is about awareness. I think this course helped me to realize the necessity and the value of continuous learning. I genuinely believe the importance of going in learning because I enjoy challenging my previous assumptions. Doing so give me a sense of intellectual satisfaction and growth. Secondly, continuing learning helped me to become a more respectful and understanding person as I learn more. I feel I'm making personal progress, and this motivates me to keep engaging in self-reflection and education. Another one is taking action. When I have the awareness, now is the time for me to take some concrete actions. I think one dimension is about verbal accountability. For example, I am very careful about my language. In Chinese, in Mandarin, there are some terminology to mark at disability or mark at femininity. So I'm very cautious and aware of this language, try not to use this language in my daily life. So one dimension is the language, another one is the action. I joined, uh, I have joined Professor George Safadeh in OISI monthly study group to discuss anti-oppression books we've been reading and share our insights. I'm very excited to connect with like-minded people. And I also volunteered for the 13th Decolonizing Conference in 2026 in Toronto. And I'm very glad I can contribute to make a difference, even in a small way. So this action plan is not an ending point, but a commitment for me to the ongoing learning and the reflective work required to build a truly anti-oppressive schools. Let's hold the critical hope for the goal to come true. This is the reference. Yeah, thank you, Professor Arlo, for watching this video. Bye.